If anything, I'll run somebody over again. During my first years of driving, I was almost kidnapped 3 times. The first time, I was with my best friend, and he was getting his license and I was renewing mine. So as I'm going home uphill on a residential street, about 20, 30 miles an hour, 2 guys come on the opposite side of the road on a motorcycle, followed by a big SUV. I don't remember if it was a Suburban or something like that, but as we were passing them through, all I can see is a massive rock coming out of nowhere, a rock kind of like this big, and just hitting my windshield. Venezuela being Venezuela, most cars have some sort of secondary protection. My car had reinforced windshields. And so every glass in the car had basically a second and a tertiary layer of this special paper that 3M sells that it's almost bulletproof like. So it makes it shatterproof, makes it resistant against impact, all that stuff. And so the windshield cracked, but it didn't break. It didn't anything at all. As they realized that their whole charade had failed, and as I'm getting really angry because I see this crack on my windshield that could have probably literally killed my friend had the rock come in, we try to escape, we try to elude them. This Suburban and these guys are kind of coming close to us. They change sides, a U-turn, and they start following us uphill. And this is a 2-lane road. The bikers are getting close. I'm doing my best, exercising the turbo in my car. And so as we are going to some twisty roads, they are getting close to blocking us. There were a handful of times where I see this Suburban trying to push me off the road or trying to block me. And I'm doing my best to just kind of get away and squeeze every inch of power that the engine has and every kind of second of millimeter of room that I can create. And it's getting tougher and tougher, but I knew traditionally there was always this broken pipe around this area. So the road was going to get wet. And I knew that traction was going to be an advantage for me having a tiny little hatchback. So as we approach the wet area of the road, I just kind of push it with the car. I know they have to slow down, otherwise they're going to flip in this very aggressive turn. And I create as much space so that they cannot see me. And as I'm going through, I approach a McDonald's and we pull into the parking lot. And we try to hide between a couple of things so that it's not visible if you're driving through it, and we just wait. And we see them pass by and kind of turn around in circles trying to figure out, but they never thought about heading into the McDonald's. So we probably sat around there for probably 45 minutes before we actually decided to head home and that it was safe. And even as we were going home, we turned quite a few times to make sure nobody was following us again. The second time that something like this happened, it was also with my buddy, and I had my basketball coach. I used to play basketball back in high school. And then on our way home, my coach asked for a ride, and we live fairly close by. So I'm like, sure, why not? This is rush hour on a Wednesday. As we're in traffic, this 3-lane road, packed, car to car, bumper to bumper, I hear a sound, and it's just like a scratch. And I just hear it, and I immediately turn. And then there's this biker, like he literally hit the side of the car. And so I'm obviously getting angry because it's my baby. And everybody's kind of confused. My coach is about to open his door and kind of deal with the situation, being the grown-up in the car. As we're looking at that, another biker, I don't know where he came from, he just pulls in front of the car. He takes he kind of goes like this and takes a gun out of his holster and just points it out, and he says, move. Living in Venezuela, you kind of have this conversation with yourself about what would you do if it comes down to a kidnapping situation. And this being my second time, I already had this conversation within me where I said, as much as I can, I'm never going to let myself get caught. I decided I'm going to test how resistant my windshield is in case this guy decides to take a shot. And so my approach was to try to run him over. I always had my car in first gear in case, so I just literally started going at him, and he tries to take a shot. Obviously, he misses because he was not expecting me to just go at him. That creates a little bit of room, and thankfully the Seat Divisa is such a narrow car that you could kind of maneuver around traffic, hitting some side mirrors and whatnot, but you can kind of make your own lane with this little thing. It's not a smart car, but when it comes down to Venezuela, we have a lot of motorcycle traffic, so cars kind of keep to the sides of the lane, and you have sufficient room to kind of play around. These guys were in some high-powered motorcycles, which is not unusual in Venezuela because a lot of people have bodyguards, and cops also have like very high high power engines in their motorcycles as well. It's not unusual for an off-duty cop to actually be the person who's trying to kidnap you. So, we don't really trust anybody there. I'm trying to lose them. I am failing at it tremendously. I'm trying to go uphill, see if that deters them. Nothing happens. I'm trying to go downhill. Nothing happens. And the only thing that it comes up to my mind is there's a cemetery nearby. And so my logical approach for some reason was to go hide at a cemetery at 7 p.m. on a Wednesday. We were able to get in. It's a very famous cemetery in Caracas and very well protected. We got into the cemetery and we just waited. We sat in the dark, turned the lights off, and we were able to actually lose them. And when you think about it, who knew a cemetery was such a great spot? So what we do next, my coach is kind of lost in the moment. Up to that point, I thought he was going to be like the action hero, the guy but no, my friend was like, great job. We like high five, we hug, and we try to, go home. And this guy is literally speechless until the time we reach his neighborhood. And he still is like confused, lost as to why, being the oldest person in the car, he actually didn't do a thing. And what he was going to do was actually going to mess us up more. The third time something like this happened, it was right around the time where I was supposed to travel. And in Venezuela, we have very stringent kind of currency exchange controls that pretty much nobody else in the world has. And at the time, there's something called Cadivi. And so it's basically the government at that point, due to inflation, it was like subsidizing buying US currency, and you would get out of your local bank. And so I went to withdraw some money. It was nothing outrageous, it was like $200. So I literally leave the bank, do a turn, kind of go up street, then turn around, and I'm about to head my way. And as I'm preparing to do that, I'm literally the first car in the line. I'm looking at this police officer kind of direct the traffic. 3 bikers show up, and they're like right in front of each other, and they block me. And behind them, there was another truck. Something's gonna go down here. But I was looking around to see who could be the potential victim, and I wasn't sure who it was gonna be. And then I realized very quickly, as soon as they drew their guns out, that they were pointing at me. And I'm like, what now? The police officer is standing in the middle of the road. She is in shock. She's not even gonna try to handle the situation. She just like runs away. And I am just left there with this tiny gap in the road. I'm driving this Daihatsu Terios, and it's a 1.3 liter with like 80 horsepower. So I know for sure I'm not gonna outrun these people. So I'm trying to assess my bets. What do I do? First reaction was get out of the gun. So I try to sneak in by this little gap in the street and the motorcyclist, and I'm like, well, whatever. If anything, I'll run somebody over again. So I squeeze in by this gap and the motorcyclist, and thankfully I didn't hit anybody, but they start following me through this very congested main street in Caracas. And I know I'm not gonna outrun them. I know my luck is limited here, and I know that if I have to surrender, I might as well not upset them too much because it's gonna end up bad for me. I started to remember that there's a police station nearby where a friend lives. And so I really didn't have much hopes in the police station, but I knew my buddy was probably there or somebody around. So worst case, I could always go to his house and kind of get into that gated community and try to lose them. And thankfully the police station was open, which was very unusual, very unusual. But I'm trying to call their attention. I'm doing all kinds of crazy stuff and nobody's paying attention to me. And I'm not about to get out of my car with these guys coming right behind me. And so I decided that the logical step to get their attention was to drive through one of their walls. And this police station was like a residential house. And so the wall that I'm trying to aim for, it would be like the living room of the house. So I figured, I've never been to that police station, but I figured nobody's supposed to be there, I guess, at that point. So I get in position, I'm like flooring the car, and I just drive into one of their walls, creating a lot of commotion and confusion. One of the guys immediately pulls out his gun and is like pointing at me. And I'm just so consumed by adrenaline at that point that I just go at him and I'm like, don't shoot me, shoot them. And I'm just like walking him through. He's still all confused as to why he shouldn't shoot me, but I'm just grabbing him outside to the street to point to the guys who are just waiting there. These guys were not intimidated by it. The cop fired, I think it was 2 warning shots up to the air. And these guys were motionless, just sticking there. They really wanted to take me that day. And so he called for backup and whatnot, but these guys were undeterred. So we probably had to wait about 2 hours until my dad was able to call some people that he knew. We're kind of a security team, and they were able to kind of push people away. They showed up on armored cars and whatever. And until that point, we were kind of all locked in, figuring if there was going to be a standoff, a shooting, what was going to go down. But these guys were not afraid of the cops. And thankfully, if it wasn't for that team, we were probably going to be there for a while, or something would have happened and gone wrong. But that's how I got away from that one.